I let my ex take the house. What I left behind cost him everything. The divorce papers sat on our kitchen table like a tombstone. Derek slid them toward me with that smile I used to love, the one that now made my stomach turn. "Sign them, Nina. Let's make this easy." His voice was smooth, practiced. Behind him, Ashley fidgeted with her phone, her diamond ring catching the afternoon light. My ring. The one Derek bought with money from our joint account 3 weeks before asking for a divorce. I stared at the papers, my hands steady even though my heart was breaking. "The house," I said quietly. "You want the house?" Derek shrugged. "I renovated it. I improved it. You can have the apartment downtown." Ashley finally looked up. "We're being generous, Nina. Most women would get nothing." I wanted to laugh, wanted to scream. Instead, I picked up the pen. "Let me back up. My name is Nina Torres. I'm 34 years old, a civil engineer who spent the last decade designing water treatment systems across Michigan. I met Derek Walsh 12 years ago at a coffee shop in Ann Arbor. He was charming, ambitious, working in real estate development. We married after 2 years. Built what I thought was a life together. The house was my inheritance. My grandmother, Rosa Torres, left it to me when she passed 8 years ago, a beautiful craftsman-style home in Traverse City, sitting on 2 acres of lakefront property. It needed work, sure, but it was mine. Derek saw potential. He quit his job, said he'd flip it into something amazing. I supported him, paid the bills with my engineering salary while he renovated. I trusted him completely. That trust shattered 6 months ago. I came home early from a site inspection in Grand Rapids. Found Derek and Ashley, his design consultant, in our bedroom. The bedroom I'd painted, the bed I'd paid for. They didn't even look guilty, just annoyed I'd interrupted. "Nina, we need to talk," Derek said, pulling on his shirt. Ashley grabbed her things and left without a word. I stood there, frozen. "How long?" I finally asked. Derek sat on the bed, running his hands through his hair. "Does it matter? Look, this isn't working anymore. You're always gone, always working. Ashley gets me. She appreciates what I'm building here, what he was building. With my money, in my house, on my land." The next morning, I went to work like nothing happened. My boss, Frank Morrison, noticed immediately. "You look terrible," he said, not unkindly. I told him everything. Frank listened, then leaned back in his chair. "Nina, you're one of the smartest engineers I know. You design systems that serve entire communities. Surely you can design a way out of this." His words stuck with me. That night, I started documenting everything. Bank statements showing I'd paid every mortgage payment. Receipts for materials Derek bought with our credit cards. Emails where I'd discussed renovation plans, proving my involvement. Derek had been clever, but not careful. He'd left a trail. I just needed to follow it. Derek moved fast. Within a week, he'd hired a lawyer, Bradley Simmons, known for crushing spouses in divorce cases. Bradley sent me a letter outlining their demands. Derek wanted the house, claiming he'd increased its value through his labor. He wanted half my retirement account. He wanted alimony because he'd sacrificed his career to improve our marital home. The letter made my blood boil, but I didn't respond emotionally. Instead, I called my own lawyer, Patricia Chen. Wait, no. I called my lawyer, Victoria Hayes. She'd helped my friend through a messy divorce 2 years ago. "Bring me everything," Victoria said when we met. "Every document, every photo, every email. We're gonna war." Victoria reviewed my documents for 3 days. When she called me back, her voice was different, excited. "Nina, do you know what you have here? The house was your inheritance. Under Michigan law, that's separate property. It doesn't matter what Derek did to it unless he can prove he added significant value using his own separate funds. But every receipt you've shown me proves he used marital funds, your funds." I felt hope for the first time in weeks. "So I can keep it?" "Better," Victoria said. "We can prove he's been hiding assets. Look at this." She showed me bank records I'd pulled. Derek had opened an account I didn't know about. Over the past 2 years, he'd been siphoning money from our joint account into it. Small amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there. It added up to $43,000. But I didn't want to just win. I wanted Derek to understand what he'd done, what he'd thrown away. So I started planning. The house had secrets Derek didn't know about. When Grandma Rosa left it to me, she also left me her journals. She'd been a builder herself back in the 1960s. She designed the house with her own hands, including features Derek had never discovered. Hidden storage spaces, a basement workshop behind a false wall, and most importantly, a separate water and electrical system that could be independently controlled. I'd helped her install the updates when I was in college learning engineering. Derek never paid attention to those summers I spent with Grandma. He just saw an old house. I saw possibility. The divorce mediation was scheduled for October 15th. Derek showed up in an expensive suit, Ashley by his side. She wasn't supposed to be there, but Bradley had somehow convinced the mediator it was fine. They sat across from Victoria and me, looking confident. The mediator, John Davidson, reviewed the documents both sides had submitted. Mr. Walsh, you're claiming you added substantial value to the marital home through renovations. Can you provide documentation of your financial contributions? Derek smiled. I provided labor. My expertise, that's worth more than money. John nodded. Mrs. Torres, your position? Victoria slid a folder across the table. The house was Mrs. Torres's separate property, inherited from her grandmother. Steph, every renovation was funded by Mrs. Torres's income. We have receipts, bank statements, and contractor invoices, all paid from marital funds that Mrs. Torres contributed. Derek's smile faded. Bradley Simmons jumped in. My client's labor significantly increased the property value. The house was worth $200,000 when inherited. It's now worth $650,000. He's entitled to half that increase. Victoria didn't blink. Except your client didn't use separate funds. He used marital funds. Funds contributed entirely by Mrs. Torres. Additionally, we've discovered Mr. Walsh has been hiding assets. She produced the secret bank account records. Derek's face went white. I can explain that. It was for us, for our future. A future you were planning with your mistress? Victoria's voice was ice. Bank records show transfers to Ashley Porter, jewelry purchases, hotel rooms, all funded by money siphoned from your wife. The mediation ended badly. Derek and Bradley left fuming. That night, Derek called me 15 times. I didn't answer. Finally, he sent a text. We need to talk. Please, I made mistakes, but we can fix this. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the house. Our house. My house. It was past midnight. The lights were off. Derek was probably at Ashley's apartment downtown. I let myself in with my key and stood in the living room Derek had renovated. It looked beautiful. Hardwood floors he'd refinished, built-in shelves he'd installed, crown molding he'd carefully placed. But underneath all that work was something he'd never seen. I walked to the basement, moved aside boxes for Christmas decorations, and pushed on a specific wall panel. It swung open. Behind it was Grandma Rosa's workshop, untouched, perfect. Inside the workshop were her tools, her blueprints, and her gift to me. The original property survey from 1962 showed something incredible. The 2 acres included a small section of lakefront that extended beyond what the county records showed. Grandma had negotiated with the county back then to keep the extra land off official records to avoid higher property taxes. It was legal, grandfathered in, but forgotten. That extra quarter acre was worth at least $200,000 on its own. Derek had no idea it existed. I also found something else in the workshop. Grandma's old notebooks detailed how she designed the house with separate systems. The main house could be isolated from utilities, water, power, everything. She'd done it because she never trusted the city infrastructure. I'd helped her maintain these systems. Derek hadn't noticed them because he'd focused on cosmetic renovations. He'd never looked at the bones of the house. That was his mistake. The court hearing was scheduled for November 3rd. Before that, I had work to do. I hired my own appraiser, Thomas Wright, someone I'd worked with on municipal projects. Tom, I need you to assess this property, but I need you to be thorough. Check everything. Tom spent 2 days at the house while Derek was at Ashley's. He found the hidden workshop, he found the separate utility systems, and he found evidence of shoddy work Derek had done. Nina, whoever did this renovation, cut corners. The electrical work in the master bedroom isn't up to code. The plumbing in the second bathroom is going to leak within a year. This could cost $50,000 to fix properly. I smiled. Put it in your report. Tom's assessment valued the house at $500,000, not $650,000. Derek's improvements had actually created liabilities. Meanwhile, Victoria was building our case. She'd hired a forensic accountant, Lawrence Kim. Lawrence traced every dollar Derek had moved. The secret account was just the start. Derek had also taken out a credit card in both our names without telling me. He'd racked up $30,000 in debt, furniture for Ashley's apartment, a trip to Cancun, designer clothes. He's been living like a king on your dime, Lawrence said, showing me the statements. I felt sick, but also angry. That anger fueled me. Victoria filed an amended petition. We weren't just fighting for the house anymore. We were seeking full reimbursement for all marital funds Derek had misappropriated. We wanted him to cover the debt he'd hidden. And we wanted the house, free and clear, returned to me as separate property. The total amount we were claiming Derek owed me was $123,000. Derek's response was predictable. He filed a counterclaim, accusing me of hiding assets. He claimed I'd been secretly planning the divorce for months. He called me vindictive. Bradley Simmons sent Victoria a nasty letter. Your client is attempting to financially destroy Mr. Walsh. We'll see her in court. Good. I wanted my day in court. The hearing arrived. Judge Helen Morrison presided. She was known for being fair but tough. She didn't tolerate nonsense. Both sides presented opening statements. Bradley painted Derek as a devoted husband who'd sacrificed his career to improve our home. Victoria painted him as a con artist who'd stolen from his wife to fund an affair. The judge listened impassively. Let's see the evidence, she said. Victoria went first. She presented bank records, receipts, contractor invoices. Everything showed I'd funded the renovations. She showed the secret account, the hidden credit card, the transfers to Ashley. Bradley tried to fight back. He called Derek to the stand. Mr. Walsh, please explain your contributions to the marital home. Derek sat up straight, trying to look dignified. Your Honor, I spent 3 years renovating that house. I worked 12-hour days. I learned new skills. I turned a dated property into a showpiece. My labor has value. Judge Morrison looked at him. Did you keep records of your hours? Timesheets? Documentation of the work you performed? Derek hesitated. No, but did you hire licensed contractors for any of the work? Some of it, yes. Paid for by whom? Derek's jaw tightened. Marital funds. Funds contributed primarily by your wife? Yes, but I was improving our home, our investment. The judge made a note. Continue, Mr. Simmons. Bradley tried to recover, but it wasn't working. Derek looked defensive, entitled. Exactly what we needed. Then Victoria called me to the stand. I kept my voice calm, factual. Mrs. Torres, please tell the court about your inheritance. My grandmother left me the house 8 years ago. It was valued at $200,000 at the time. It was designated as my separate property in her will. And your husband's involvement? He wanted to renovate it. I supported that decision. I paid for all materials and contractors using my salary. Did you contribute labor to the renovations? This was important. Yes, Your Honor. I helped with planning, design, and some physical work. I also maintained the property's original systems that my grandmother had installed. Victoria showed photos of me working on the house. Painting, installing fixtures. Derek had taken them, never realizing they'd be used against him. And were you aware of your husband's affair? Not until 6 months ago. Victoria then called Thomas Wright, my appraiser. Tom presented his findings. The house was worth $500,000, not $650,000. Derek's renovations had created code violations and future liabilities. In your professional opinion, Mr. Wright, did the renovations add value to the property? Some did, but overall, I'd estimate they added perhaps $150,000 in value, offset by $50,000 in necessary repairs. Net increase of $100,000. Bradley tried to discredit him, but Tom had 30 years of experience. His testimony stood. Next came Lawrence Kim, the forensic accountant. He walked the judge through Derek's financial deceptions, every hidden transaction, every secret purchase. By the end of his testimony, Derek looked smaller in his chair. Ashley had left the courtroom an hour earlier. Judge Morrison called for a recess. We reconvened 2 hours later. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony, the judge began. This is a clear case of separate property commingled with marital funds. However, Michigan law is specific. When separate property is improved using marital funds, the contributing spouse may be entitled to reimbursement, but not ownership. Derek perked up. Maybe he thought he'd won. The judge continued. However, Mr. Walsh's conduct is troubling. He systematically deceived his wife, misappropriated marital funds, and created undisclosed debt. His claim that his labor entitled him to half the property is without merit. He failed to document his contributions and failed to disclose his financial misconduct. She looked at Derek. The house will be awarded to Mrs. Torres as her separate property. Mr. Walsh will be responsible for reimbursing Mrs. Torres for all marital funds he misappropriated, totaling $123,000. Derek shot to his feet. That's not fair. I worked on that house for 3 years. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Walsh, you used your wife's money to renovate your wife's property while conducting an affair. You're fortunate I'm not awarding her additional damages. Sit down. He sat, his face red. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, Mr. Walsh will be responsible for all marital debt, including the credit card he opened without Mrs. Torres's knowledge. He will have 30 days to vacate the property. This court is adjourned. Victoria squeezed my hand under the table. We'd won. Everything. Derek stormed out without looking at me. Bradley followed, already on his phone, probably calling his next client. I sat there, letting it sink in. The house was mine. Derek owed me money. Justice had been served. But I wasn't done. That night, I went to the house one last time before Derek had to leave. He was there, packing boxes. Ashley was helping him. They both froze when I walked in. You can't be here, Derek said. Actually, I can. It's my house. The judge said so. Ashley grabbed her purse. I'll wait in the car. After she left, Derek and I stood in the living room. The silence was heavy. You destroyed me, Nina. His voice was bitter. No, Derek, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure you faced consequences. I loved you. I built this place for us. I shook my head. You didn't love me. You loved what I could give you. Money, security, a house to play with. But you never saw me. I pulled out an envelope. Here, consider it a parting gift. Derek opened it. Inside were copies of the original property survey showing the extra quarter acre. His eyes widened. What is this? That's the land you never knew existed, worth about $200,000. It's mine, always was. You renovated a house but never even knew what you were standing on. His hands shook. You kept this hidden? Grandma did. I just never told you. Why would I? You never asked about her. Never cared about where this house came from. You just saw dollar signs. Derek crumpled the paper. I could have sold this place for so much more. But you didn't, because you didn't do the work. You didn't research. You didn't care about anything except your own ego. I turned to leave. You have 30 days. Don't be late. Outside, I breathed in the cold November air. It smelled like freedom. Derek didn't take the loss well. He tried to appeal the judge's decision. Bradley Simmons filed motions claiming new evidence, but Victoria shot them all down. The ruling stood. During those 30 days, I stayed away from the house. I didn't want to see Derek pack up his life. But I got reports. He'd hired movers. He'd taken furniture we'd bought together, which was fine. I didn't want reminders. On day 29, Victoria called. Derek's out. The house is empty. You can move back in. I drove there that evening. Walking through the rooms felt strange. They were bare but mine. I went down to the basement, to Grandma's workshop. Everything was still there. Derek had never found it. I sat at her old workbench and cried. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. I'd fought. I'd won. 3 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Nina? It's Derek. I should have hung up, but I waited. What do you want? I need help. The debt? I can't pay it. Bradley says I can negotiate with you, set up a payment plan. I laughed, actually laughed. Derek, you have 30 days from the judge's order to start paying, or I can garnish your wages. That's the law. Please. Ashley left me. I lost my contractor's license because of the code violations Tom found. I'm living with my parents. I'm broke. For a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered him in our bed with Ashley, remembered his smug smile signing the divorce papers. You made your choices, Derek. Live with them. I hung up. Later that week, I started the garnishment process. Derek was working at a hardware store making minimum wage. The payments would take years, but I'd get my money. Meanwhile, I hired a proper contractor to fix Derek's shoddy work. It cost $47,000, but the house was finally perfect. Safe, up to code. I also developed the hidden quarter acre, built a small guest house on it. rented it out on weekends to tourists visiting Traverse City. The rental income covered my mortgage and then some. The house wasn't just mine anymore. It was thriving. 6 months after the divorce, I got a promotion at work. Senior engineer, overseeing projects across 3 states. Frank offered me the job over lunch. You've shown incredible resilience, Nina. That's what we need in leadership. 1 year later, I stood on my back porch, watching the sunset over the lake. The water was calm, reflecting pink and orange light. Grandma's house, my house, stood solid behind me. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the pain, the fight, and the victory. Derek had wanted to take everything from me. Instead, he'd lost everything himself. His reputation, his career, his relationship, all because he'd underestimated me. People ask if I regret how hard I fought. I don't. Not for a second. Sometimes you have to stand up for what's yours. Sometimes you have to show people that kindness isn't weakness, that quiet strength can be devastating. Derek thought he could walk away with my inheritance. What he didn't know was that I'd already won before he even started playing. Because I knew the house's secrets. I knew my worth. And I knew how to fight. That's what I learned from Grandma Rosa. Not just how to build a house, but how to build a life worth protecting. So if you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or pushed aside, remember this. Don't just get even. Get strategic. Know your worth. Document everything, and when they think you're beaten, that's when you show them what you're really made of. Thanks for listening to my story. I'd love to hear yours. Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Drop a comment below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more true stories about standing up, fighting back, and winning on your own terms. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's precise. I let my ex take the house. What I left behind cost him everything.